Hello and welcome to my channel Pharmacy in Depth, where we'll talk about pharmacy related topics in detail. Today we will talk about proton pump inhibitors. So at some point of time, you all must have taken these drugs like Omeprazole, Pantoprazole, Rabeprazole or Lansoprazole. So all these drugs come under the category of proton pump inhibitors. These drugs are used for conditions like gastric ulcers, duodenal ulcers, GERD or gastroesophageal reflux disorder, or in case of heartburns. All these conditions arises because of increase in hydrochloric acid synthesis in the stomach. HCl is produced in the stomach by a specialized cell called the parietal cell, which is present in the inner lining of the stomach. Now let's see how HCl is produced by this parietal cell. So this is a representation of a parietal cell of the stomach. On the bottom side is the stomach and blood vessel flows above it. At the center of this cell, there is a hydrogen potassium ATPase pump, which is an ATP dependent pump. It has other channels also like chloride ion channel, potassium ion channel and bicarbonate chloride antiport present on the surface of the cell. CO2 from the blood vessel enters the cell where it combines with H2O to form H2CO3. This H2CO3 readily dissociates into H+ and HCO3- ions. This H+ ion or the proton is pumped by hydrogen potassium ATPase pump to the stomach in exchange of potassium ion which moves inside the parietal cell. This potassium ion moves back to the stomach from the cell by potassium ion channel and remains in the cycle. The bicarbonate ion present inside the cell moves out of the cell by a bicarbonate chloride antiport in exchange of the chloride ion which moves inside the parietal cell. From inside the cell, it moves to the stomach by chloride ion channel where it combines with the proton to form HCl or the hydrochloric acid. There are certain intrinsic molecules whose receptors are present on the surface of the parietal cell, binding of which can stimulate the hydrogen potassium ATPase pump and increase the acid secretion in the stomach. These are gastrin, acetylcholine by M3 receptors, prostaglandin by E2 receptor and histamine by H2 receptors. As we can see that the main regulator of proton inside the stomach is the ATPase pump. So the proton pump inhibitor drugs block this pump and hence reduce the acidity of the stomach. Now let's see in more detail how these proton pump inhibitor drugs inhibit this ATPase pump. But before that, we will see some properties of these drugs. So proton pump inhibitor drugs are weak bases having a pKa of around 4.0. They are prodrugs and require activation by acid. They are unstable in gastric environments and require stabilization prior to absorption in the blood. That is why we see that we get enteric coated and gastro-resistant capsules of omeprazole drug. In this table we can see the pharmacokinetic parameter of the proton pump inhibitor drugs, and we can see that the T half, which is the last parameter of all these drugs, is around 1 to 2 hour. So when we take these drugs orally, it passes from the stomach to the intestine where it is absorbed into the blood vessels, and from the blood it passes to the parietal cell of the stomach where these drugs gets accumulated in the secretory canaliculus of the stimulated parietal cells. Stimulated parietal cells are those cells which are secreting the HCl. This acidic environment activates the proton pump inhibitors, which forms a thiophilic compound which reacts with the SH group of cysteine in the pump and forms a disulfide bond with the pump. This bonding is irreversible and it blocks the pump permanently until new pumps are synthesized. But not to worry, the half-life of these proton pump proteins are 54 hours, and in 24 hours around 20% of these proteins are synthesized. So guys, this was all about proton pump inhibitors. In this video we have seen in detail how HCl is produced inside the stomach by the parietal cell and how these proton pump inhibitor drugs bind to the parietal cell and inhibits them. So I really hope you liked my video, and if you did, like it, share it and subscribe to my channel.